This meeting is being recorded.
So, class, we have two special guests coming in. So this is, of course, our Comm Studies Communication Consulting course, where you're learning all about the ins and outs of communication consulting, to building needs assessments, to also building communication campaigns. And so I gave you all a brief discussion in the last video that talked about what you will be doing. And so you have the honor and privilege to actually be here and learn about the Cal or the SoCal or all of California real estate market with two hardworking agents here that I will have them introduce themselves in a second. Then I'm going to go over a few questions with them, and then they're going to leave us with some parting advice, some sage advice about the real estate market for any of you who are interested in it, who may want to pursue that in the future. You never know, they may be hiring and they're probably looking at your resumes at some point. So here we are. Thanks again for being here. We have Herb Diaz and Mike Ramirez, some personal friends of mine, but some of the best real estate agents, I would say, on the planet. I'm not trying to be biased. They do great work. But what I would like for, Herb, Mike, you can do it however in order you would like to do it, just to introduce yourselves and what got you into the real estate business.
Okay. I guess I'll go first.
Go for it.
Okay, so my name is Herb Diaz. I'm a real estate broker and mortgage broker here now in Downey, California. I've been doing this now 21 years. And I originally started with the dream of working for myself and having the flexibility to spend more time with family, which the career can afford you. And my goal was to, be my own boss, essentially, which it does give you that as well. And, it's worked out very well for us here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike?
Yes, sir. Well, you know what? Thank you so much for inviting us, Sean. My name is Mike Ramirez. I'm a SoCal realtor as well. I do work in the same brokerage as Herb Diaz for PLF Real Estate Solutions in the city of Downey. What got me involved in real estate was my family. I'm third generation realtor. Started from my grandfather, father, aunt back in '98. Something that I went out for my license, and 4 months I didn't like it. So you know what? One thing I did do is I kept my license active. I did it part-time, but then I went into corporate America. I did that for about 20 years. And one morning I walked in and the whole department was just laid off. I've always wanted to, again, own my own business, help people. So it kind of took, after 20 years to be laid off, to finally, be at a place where I love doing what I do. It's the freedom, but there's also a lot of responsibility. But at the end of the day, fulfilled on really helping people out.
Yeah. So Herb and Mike, you two talked about the freedom, right? It's a business. And Mike, you just said that when you first started, you didn't like it. Okay. So people hear about real estate, and I know we all talk about it all the time, where somebody will look at something on HGTV and then just think that they can do it, right? So can you describe what the business of real estate is? If you know what I'm asking.
Sure. So, the business of real estate, it could be so many different things, Sean. It's kind of one of the great things is that no two realtors are alike, no two mortgage loan officers are alike. Prior to 2008, the real estate license would allow you to do both mortgage loan origination and real estate sales. but just kind of simplifying things, it really is the career and the industry, the business of real estate is connecting buyers and sellers in an open market to transact. Okay, that's essentially the business of real estate, whether it's a commercial transaction, a 20-unit building, to a typical 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and everything in between. There's so many different aspects to it. You have, certain agents that focus on one niche, and that works out for them. And then to kind of piggyback off that, it's a sales kind of business. It's kind of one of those things that if you have an extroverted personality, you have a good you have a good opportunity to have some success. Communications is really good and have to be really strong. And the background for like your students have will get them ahead in this particular industry.
Yeah. Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, I definitely piggyback on what Herb just said. I mean, yeah, real estate is a buying, selling, managing and investing in real property. That's just the business. One thing that I learned quick, and I think going just, rewinding back to 98, the mentality again was, because I grew up in a real estate family, I seen all these fancy cars and the suits and stuff like that. In my head was like, oh man, you know what? A transaction equals to money, and let's do it. Well, you know what? Yes, in the long run it does. At the end of the day, it does. But one thing that we also have to understand is that real estate is a relationship building business. Sincerely, you do have to care for your clients. So I learned that really quick back in 98. So I think that's where the success comes from, is understanding that it's a relationship business as well.
Yeah, so you would think about all these things. Excuse me, my mom keeps calling me. I'll call her back later. But so you talk about relationships and building connections and transactions. We see that all across the U.S. Real estate, of course, is everywhere. But I think LA is a little different. I'm not an LA native. You all taught me a lot. Some of my students are not LA natives. So how could you describe like the difference, I guess you could say, in the market from when you all started versus what you're seeing today?
It is considerably different. And I think the best way to describe it, Sean, is we have a split right in 2008. And I compare it to kind of like in religion, in a Christian religion, where you have before Christ and after. Okay.
Yeah.
So that in 2008 in real estate and housing specifically, that was a housing driven crisis that occurred, and it changed the landscape forever. Okay. There was a lot of, there was really no oversight prior to that. Now it's very much governed, and everything is monitored in order, and obviously for the protection of the consumer. There's a lot of different entities that have risen from that. And when I initially got in to real estate as an intern at Century 21 in Sun Valley, it was really the flash that Mike was describing right now, right? I remember the loan officer there, and if anybody knows Sun Valley, California, back then, it was not a very affluent community, okay? It was very much on the lower economic scale. But because there was no oversight, I remember going, on my bike because I was 18 years old, showing up to work, and the realtors and loan officers there had, exotic cars, right? They had Lamborghinis, they had Ferraris, and that was quite surprising to me. I'm like, wow, here in this neighborhood. Back then, there wasn't the same oversight, so there was a lot of flexibility, and because of that, you had a huge flow of transactions occurring, which was leading up to that bubble, right? So I started in 2002, and then kind of grew from there. And that's where you started to see everything kind of arise from that. Back then, it wasn't uncommon to see a home, say, like Dana Point in Orange County, which is very affluent, to sell for like 700,000 on a higher scale. Now you'll see the same situation for $3 million. You know what I mean? So values have increased. It shows truly and wholly that it's always better to buy real estate and wait than to wait to buy real estate, because we've been through so much in the 20 years, right? After 2008, things like an NMLS with license for a mortgage loan originator were required, which is what that stands for is a nationwide mortgage loan system endorsement to your real estate license. Or you had the Department of Business and Oversight, the DBO, monitor those specific licensees. Then you had the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau come about. You have different disclosure laws, different waiting periods developed. Now things have completely shifted. Back then in 2005 and 6, when it was real hot, you could pretty much buy a house 0 down and get cash back through the transaction. Now there's a lot of things that are in place which require any home buyer to at least come in with their down payment, which really protects the industry as a whole, because we saw what happens when you don't have the oversight that's required to maintain this industry.
Yeah. Mike?
Absolutely. I mean, in regards to the safeguards that are in place, Herb, was spot on. I kind of wanted to share some numbers with you. I was looking at some trends back in '98. That way we could, just see how the market has changed. I mean, back in '98, Los Angeles County, the median price for a home was about $192,000. And then also the interest rate was approximately around 10%. Now it did take a dip in the in the late '90s at 7%. So as you can see, the market goes up and down. It adjusts itself, but again, what Herb just described and explained, spot on.
Yeah, I wish I was old enough to buy in '98, because I know my my mother-in-law bought her house, I think, for $150,000, and I know it's they're selling those condos, a 3-bedroom condo are selling for like almost 700 now. So goodness, it's crazy.
It's crazy, Sean. You could have bought, I think about it back then. I tell my dad, I'm like, Dad, you could have bought beachfront property in Venice for $390,000 in 1997, and which now we all know that's many millions more than that.
Exactly.
So it's just, and look, it's housing is one thing that I tell everybody, we all need it. And the one thing that I don't see changing is population growth, especially in the metro areas of the country. Yeah. And anywhere from, I would say, Ventura County south, all the way south, down to the border, is hot, a hot commodity. And you have year over year, I know there's a lot of reports that people live in California, I'm like, not the metro centers, and everybody's coming, and they can't build fast enough, and they really, when we have things like we have right now, like inflation, where builders kind of stop, it creates a huge supply issue, which is what we've kind of encountered over the last 12 months, really 36 months, where the supply is so constricted and the demand is so strong, which is why property values continue to increase. So, it's something that we haven't ever seen, but it's going to continue to go in that direction as you are in a metro area like Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Diego.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though. You know, like you say, real estate's up and down. Things are unexpected. So COVID came. It's leaving, but it hasn't left yet, I guess. But how has this turned your world upside down? Even if it has.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Sean. I was ready to turn in my papers, right? As soon as we heard that there was going to be a shutdown of the entire country, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to need to look for a new position. I'm going to need to do something else.
Yeah.
What we did not expect was an incredible demand, or no, not demand, that came with it, but the right word that I'm looking for is need.
Mm-hmm.
People realized that they needed housing, and they needed to, since they couldn't leave their households. I mean, it was a good amount of time that you couldn't leave your home, and if you were going, you were only going to the store and coming back. We saw basically it unraveled and showed that the housing crisis, and it put it like at a spotlight that it's never seen before. So for us in this industry, it grew. It grew at an incredible amount. The amount of value that increased, if I'm not mistaken, and Mike, you may know this because you're the numbers guy, may have gone up somewhere around 25% in value from January 2020, where we didn't expect this, to today, where things are now, inflation's affecting the interest rates and such, so prices are starting to stabilize.
Yeah.
If we go and match the two, I'm telling you, there's homes that are considerably increased in value. The demand increased the longer that we were under that, through the coronavirus pandemic. And as the summer came, the summer is always the busiest time for our industry. We started to see homes that had the additional features like additional square footage, pools, maybe had a basketball court, maybe had access to certain things so that way you could have the entertainment, sell for incredible amounts that I personally, in my career of doing this now 21 years, had never seen a house go for more than maybe $50,000-$60,000 above asking. It was uncommon. It was not uncommon to see homes go from 100 to 200,000 above asking for the right neighborhood, the right situation. So it was a lot of job security as a result. It did kind of reveal, where we are today. We have a situation where incomes haven't grown along with housing. So that creates a separate issue, but there's still a huge demand for housing because the COVID pandemic did something else. Everybody who owned a home took advantage of the very low interest rates.
Yeah.
And what that created was a different situation all the way around. The interest rates went down. It was actually Mike's client. He had helped them get a home, and they've been working forever. And I remember I locked that rate at 1.875% for a house.
That's
for
beautiful.
30 years. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Sean, I guarantee you that man will never sell that house.
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, you now with the interest rates being where they're at 6.5%, you have a situation where you have disincentivized anybody to sell because it's cheaper for them to stay in their home, which will add another constriction to housing because now people who own will likely not sell. They're more inclined to rent or to use it as a rental property for themselves to add some additional income. Or if they're looking to buy another house, there's no incentive to because it's so expensive with both the cost of acquiring a home loan being very expensive and then the cost of real estate being so expensive. So then that creates another supply issue which now, with the demand, it's still very strong. Now it's tapered off, it's stabilized, but because of the COVID pandemic, this is where it's led us now. And obviously, it's a great thing for our industry, but I don't know as a society as a whole if that's a good thing. Right?
Yeah. Mike?
No, definitely. I mean, the pandemic was unfortunate, and I'm not going to tell you that, I wasn't alarmed when, the whole shutdown. I was there with Herb, and, we had a discussion, and it was something that, you walk away from and you're like, oh man, I might have to pivot, but on the other side, the flip side of the coin, people sometimes won't take that leap of faith until they're inconvenienced, right? Mm-hmm. So, the days will go where you have the kids, maybe, 3-4 kids, whatever the case might be. The family will, get home, dinner, shower, bed. Morning, everybody wakes up, kids go to school, I'm going to work. So, I mean, there wasn't really that need to take that leap of faith to go purchase property or even more living space. But now when COVID hit, all of a sudden you have the kids jumping on the couch, you're over here trying to, get on a Zoom call and the wife is on the other side trying to run her own meeting. Forget about it. Especially, I have a lot of clients that are professors and teachers, and Sean,
yeah,
there's just no way that's gonna work. You know, so again, right. Yeah. So the opportunity that COVID brought, not only for renters that couldn't be able to afford in the metro area, because now, by going a little further out and with interest rates being so low, well, guess what? Now they have that opportunity to be to take opportunity of the American dream. You know what I mean? So again, it was definitely unfortunate, but it really opened the eyes, and it opened my eyes as well, because during my business, and you will get there as well, we had to pivot. Yeah. And pivot fast. So, yeah.
So, we speak about it. I would say, I don't know, you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but, 2008 was a bad crisis. I would say that COVID, the way that it lasted, was another market shifting, situation. So all the problems, I guess, that happen in our society relative to real estate kind of falls in between those two eras or situations, I could say, because, having a deal and it's about to close, but then the person backs out in the last minute, that's just something that comes with the territory. But having something like this where you have to consider pivoting is, one of those problems that, it's kind of hard to overcome. But you two remained resilient, and you're pushing the business. All these things are going forward. Now, I want to get to the last question in particular, because I think this is the one that not only, helps you stay stable with where you are, but helping you go towards the future as well. So, like I say, many of my students have backgrounds in public relations, communication, marketing, social media. They're on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook. They are pushing a lot of the things that they do on campus, and they're learning other skills in this class. So with that being said, what would you like for my students to help you with when it comes to the business?
Number one thing in our industry, as it shifts and changes over the last 10, 12 years, is technology. Number one thing, communication has changed dramatically, right? Being able to get someone's attention went from, I don't even remember, I know it was longer than what it is now, but now it's maybe 2 or 3 seconds and you lose them because they're scrolling up and down on their phone, right? Communication before was through snail mail. Communication before was through commercials on television. Now it's on your phone. You know what I mean? So social media is something that's become an incredibly valuable tool for our business, for our listings, and then really, to be honest with you, like, and we teach this in our trainings. You know, we're such good salespeople that we feel 100% confident that if I get the right, get a person that's looking to use, who's on the fence of doing anything, buying, selling, whatever, that we'll be able to guide them to the best decision and more than likely resulting in a sale. What we've realized now with social media, that we're able to do that and multiply that by 100, 200,000 times and deliver that same message one time, right? Versus getting in front of one person at a time. So social media in technology is probably the most that in our industry, and as it evolves, right? I mean, and I don't know, right? I'm still getting it. I'm not the most savvy with it, but as we go further and further, I mean, I think 10 years ago was Facebook, right? And just being able to get that message. Then they came out with video, and then make sure you get your video message out. Then it evolved Instagram. Now it's Reels. Now it's TikTok. Now it's, and so you got to do so much more. But it all revolves around social media and technology. And I think that's number one. Secondary to that would be being an effective communicator, being able to deliver a message quickly, go right into it and make sure that you give the information within a 30-second amount of time, because the most key things to grab attention initially and then be able to convey that message very effectively within 30 seconds.
All right, Mike.
No, definitely. I mean, COVID hit, 2020, and it was 2 years ago. And at that time I was 45. I was just barely trying to figure out how to use, I think, my MySpace or something, you know what I mean? So it was just something that I would get on, and all these social media platforms and take photos, and no big deal. But all of a sudden, I wake up and I have to learn. I have to learn how to use this. So to answer your question, how your team could better help my business is absolutely. If I would love to pick the brain on being more efficient in the social media platforms, being able to communicate better with the clients or just with the world, with the masses, so definitely, I would definitely take you up on that. But when you're younger, to me, technology was a little faster. Right now, it's just like, oh, hold on, man, let me see what's going on, right? It's like a Rubik's Cube sometimes. So definitely, I would definitely take you up on that.
Okay, so that's the end of the questions, but I do have I have another one that's off of the thing that I sent you all, but it's not a bad one. It's just more so of helping them with the clarity. So for the students who are trying to understand real estate, again, you have your agents and you have your brokers, right? I know, Herb, you mentioned this briefly at first, but could you two kind of explain that, and then how you two work together to make those transactions happen?
Sure. So there's and look, I'll be completely honest, because this is our business is an experience-based one, right? Yeah. I joke with certain, and I think I've even joked with you, Sean, right? Where to get licensed and to get started in our business, all you need is a pulse. Yeah. Okay. But that's not, this is probably one of the, if not the most competitive industries that you could ever be in. Okay. I started out as a salesperson, right? And walked into Century 21 and then grew my career from there. But growing my career really revolved around experience.
Yeah.
Okay. With a college degree in business, all you would need is to take a exam for the broker's license, right? If you didn't have that, you could just, go have 2 years experience and you can become a broker, which is I think the difference between the two is very slim. 70% to pass the same exam for a real estate salesperson, 75% to become a real estate broker. But again, experience is where how they measure, and then or with the education. Then from there, what's the broker, right? Well, salesperson and broker, they do the same things, except the broker, should they choose, there's a lot of broker associates that run, basically work for big companies, right? But should the broker or should a licensed real estate broker decide, they can open their own business and manage and run an entity. And from that broker's license, you can open a variety of different businesses, like an escrow company, mortgage company, etc. Right? Whereas with a salesperson, depending on their intentions for their career or whatever, they can work for that specific entity, right? And the roles begin to change as you evolve. As we get more and more experience, a broker's role is to offer opportunity to the salespeople that work for him versus generating their own sales, right? So that's essentially the difference. But I would venture to say, you have top producing, top flight agents like Mike, who have this on an assembly line, right? He has a system that he works, and he has been very successful and produces at a high volume. And it just kind of depends on where you fall and what your goals are, and then what your strengths are, right? With brokerages, it's more of it's not about the sales anymore. It's now more about managing, and it's very, that's where I see probably the biggest differences between the two.
Okay. Mike, you got a little bit for your side?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Herb did a great job explaining the path of a broker and an agent. Of course, I'm not a broker just yet. I could definitely share the agent side of it. Man, it's you're not a W-2. You're not a W-2 employee, and you're not going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. This is not for, and I'll just be very blunt. This is not for the lazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to get up, and before you get up, you already have to have that blueprint, the blueprint that you yourself design, because no one else is going to design it for you. You know. And again, I think that if anyone is thinking about becoming a realtor, the only advice I could give you is, one, really think about why you want to become a realtor, and two, because I mean, you said it yourself, right? A lot of shows, $1 million listings, and things like that. And again, a lot of those agents are successful. But one thing that the show does not show you is what goes on behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of transactions that might last, 20 days or even 60 days, or even what you kind of brought up, right? I see the finish line, and all of a sudden, Mike, yes, I lost my job. Well, guess what? There's no transaction anymore.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's a business relationship deal. You really have to care for the people that you're guiding and helping, because if you're just doing it for the money and chasing the money, it's not going to work.
Yeah. So, Mike, thank you all for the great advice, breaking down the industry, breaking down your individual roles and how you work collectively, where the market has come from, where it is now, especially with COVID. And now I believe the students have a great understanding as to Now it's taking it to the next level of communication and understanding how to possibly build a communication campaign, learning how to use LinkedIn and YouTube and all these sort of sites that people kind of underrate. I think the students have a wealth of knowledge now to move forward. They're going to take a couple of more weeks to learn the concepts of developing an assessment. And then at some point later in this summer, maybe mid-August, I could share their communication campaigns with you to kind of see, what are some things that you can take and use for your businesses.
Oh, absolutely. We'd love that.
All right, so I'm going to end the recording now. I just want you two to stay on just for a second, but I'm just going to end this recording for the students.
Okay.